I had run from the cottage in a blind fear, having time only to grab my shotgun and a handful of shells. Hours or minutes later, when the madness finally fled from my heart, I found myself lost but blessedly alone. I could make out nothing unique amongst the dank foliage and bracken. I cannot recall if I'd passed that patch of woods before. I felt a surge of hope as I reloaded. I don't know why, but I love to reload during a battle. The bracken in that part of the forest was thick, forming a maze of twisty passages all alike. I came across a large glade filled with flowers of queer and disturbing aspect. The sickly sweet smell of the night bloomers hit me like a physical force. I fumbled with the bullets, hurriedly placing them into the chamber, breathless with fear. Shot after shot, my aim remained true, and the dirt grew dark with ink and blood. I found myself again at the maze of twisty paths, thinking perhaps another path might lead me true, to freedom and escape. I had come to my final box of shells. Perhaps the last I would ever see. I was at the glade where I first found myself that night. Fitting, I thought to myself, that it might also be the last place I see. My pockets bulged to fullness with shells. Ammo would not be a worry for quite some time. I could make out nothing unique amongst the dank foliage and bracken. I cannot recall if I'd passed that patch of woods before. An old New England cemetery. At least whoever found me would not need to carry me far, I thought grimly. I fumbled with the bullets, hurriedly placing them into the chamber, breathless with fear. I had but 6 shells left. I knew I would have to make them count. What could be said of that particular patch of forest, other than that it had an overabundance of damp foliage and a corresponding dearth of landmarks? I had come to my final box of shells. Perhaps the last I would ever see. What could be said of that particular patch of forest, other than that it had an overabundance of damp foliage and a corresponding dearth of landmarks? The cemetery. No doubt some malevolent force or subliminal wish for death had urged me into returning again that night. The nearest eldritch octopi glowed with malevolence as a dark force flung me away. The air was heavy with the smell of brine and ozone. What could be said of that particular patch of forest, other than that it had an overabundance of damp foliage and a corresponding dearth of landmarks? The cemetery. No doubt some malevolent force or subliminal wish for death had urged me into returning again that night. I had come to my final box of shells, perhaps the last I would ever see. As the blessed light of dawn broke through the trees, the nocturnal sea devils bubbled and melted in a foul-smelling fog. Burnt seaweed mingled with a sickly sweetness like rotten fruit. My eyes teared and stung, but I knew I would live another day. Had I known what the future held for me, I may have wished otherwise.